Well, we made it. It's here. It's voting day here in the States. I say here in the States because, according to my analytics, only 96% of my listeners are US listeners. The other 4% are listening in the UK, Australia, and Russia. Anyway, so a lot of people have been looking forward to exercising their right to vote as free citizens. Some people have already voted. We don't have that where I live. You have one day, and you either have to go early and hope you're not late to work, go on your lunch break and hope you can be back in an hour, or go after work and hope you can get in line before the polls close. So it is what it is. So some people have already voted. Some people are exercising their right to not vote. And a lot of people, frankly, are just ready to get it all over. But it's interesting to me that when it's time to vote, there's all this messaging on social media, on posters, flyers, at events, at the library, on TV. It is absolutely everywhere. Messaging telling us to vote. Some of it tells us who to vote for, but a lot of it is just telling us that we need to vote in general. And I think voting is great. I vote every time there's an election. And I'm thankful to live in a country in which my vote counts just as much as a rich person, a famous person. My vote counts just as much as the people who are actually running for office. It's just interesting to me that the United States is billed as the single greatest nation that has ever existed, but our highest responsibility, our peak function as citizens, is to pick people we don't know to make decisions for us. Think about that for a second. Our greatest contribution to our country is to vote for people we will never be in the same room with so that they can make decisions that affect our lives. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. And it kind of reminds me of religion, the religious system, which bills itself as the answer to all of life's questions. But when it comes down to it, it's more or less a framework in which the best you can do is repeat a formulaic prayer to be part of the club, and then hope to survive your time here on earth, and then maybe get some kind of respite when you're dead. All of which is kind of a dud, if you ask me. But if we want to compare the two a little further, there are also high levels of shame in both politics and religion. And we're probably familiar with the role of shame as a motivator in church culture. I think that's generally accepted. But I've really noticed it in political culture too. There's always this weird shaming of people who express that they might choose to not vote. And not voting is just as much of a right as voting. You have the right to make a statement by saying, these people do not represent my interest, and I refuse to vote for either of them. And there's always this visceral anger against this sentiment, which I partly understand but also find to be very off-putting. But the whole thing is also very binary in both religion and politics. It's very yes or no, black or white, good or bad, Republican or Democrat, enemy or ally. And that's not how life typically works. Life tends to be full of color and nuance, spectrums, and unexpected partnerships. Life in the spirit, specifically, is very fluid and unpredictable. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm against voting or ungrateful to live in the US. Not at all. Not in the slightest. I'm just asking, what else are you doing besides voting? What else do you have going on? What are you focused on? Like you as an individual, what are you doing that belongs to you? What are you investing in? What are you believing for? What kind of legacy are you building? And who are you building it with? Because I see the messaging that tells us to vote, but where are the billboards that tell us to start a business? Where are the Facebook ads that remind us that we can plant our own gardens? Where are the celebrities making videos encouraging us to write books or start families or learn new skills? The whole system seems to be set up to keep us dependent on other people. People who are smarter, richer, more educated, more informed. And informed about what? What are they so informed about? And why are we so invested in picking people to do stuff for us? And I realize that's an overgeneralization. Like, I don't have time or energy to research or vote directly on every government infrastructure project or spending bill. I'm glad we have people whose job it is to do that. I'm just wondering if our fascination with our elected officials is indicative of some deeper issue. I'm just wondering, and I'm just spitballing here, is it possible that the people who are hyper invested in politics might be people who don't really have much else going on? That probably sounds judgmental, but I'm just asking questions here. Is it possible that the healthiest, most successful people are the ones who expect to thrive no matter who is in the White House or the governor's mansion or the mayor's office? I don't know. But I did want to, real quick, before I wrap up, I wanted to compare and contrast our governmental system with Yahweh's kingdom. I think both are good, but I also think that one is better than the other. So, number one, under man's governance, if I have questions, comments, or concerns, I can write a letter to my congressman, which may or may not be read by said congressman. In Yahweh's kingdom, if I have questions, comments, or concerns, I have standing direct access to the king by way of the Holy Spirit. Under man's governance, if I want change, I must wait for an election year and vote for a different candidate or party. In Yahweh's kingdom, I am under a government that is perfect and has no need for change. Under man's governance, I am led by other humans who will never know my name. In Yahweh's kingdom, my leadership is an internal voice who has always known me intimately. Under man's governance, good men shed their blood to throw off the rule of a tyrannical king. In Yahweh's kingdom, a good king shed his own blood to overthrow the rule of tyrannical men. So again, voting is great. The U.S. is great. All I'm saying is, the prettiest girl in class doesn't have to constantly remind everyone that she's the prettiest, right? And maybe the best player shouldn't have to remind everyone that he's the best. And if he's honest, maybe he's really just trying to convince himself that he's the best. But isn't that the nature of man? Isn't that the nature of man? To always be self-promoting, to create something and then try to convince everyone that his thing is the best thing. It reminds me of Genesis 11, which recounts the building of the Tower of Babel. Genesis 11:4 says, "And they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth.'" Let us make a name for ourselves. A name for ourselves. I feel like the government reinforcing the importance of voting is like an Italian restaurant touting the health benefits of tomatoes. They're not wrong, but isn't it on some level a little self-seeking? So maybe the United States is the greatest nation to ever exist. Maybe it truly is the best that man can do. That could be totally true. My question is, since when are we supposed to be in awe of the best that man can do? And do you believe that there's something greater, something higher, something more substantial, more consequential, more indelible? And if the answer is yes, then maybe that thing is worth focusing on. For me, that thing is the kingdom. My joy is in the kingdom. My peace is in the kingdom. My inheritance, my legacy, my trust, my security. And I don't just live there, it lives in me. And that's the one thing that no country, no government, no system can ever reproduce. So enjoy where you live, where you lay your head at night, where your body resides. Be thankful, but just remember, our ultimate geography is in Him. That's where I want to live. That's where I belong. So do you. I'm Ryan Coleman. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.